protests erupting all across China. This is China, a country that cracks down on any dissidents, and is currently seeing massive protests breaking out throughout the country. The protests that started in Guangzhou with the Foxconn factory have spread throughout the country like wildfire, and it is not just taking place in liberal first-tier cities like Shanghai and Beijing, but is now taking a life of its own, with protests erupting even in the smaller cities of Inner Mongolia and Xinjiang. People have taken to the streets in large numbers in cities throughout China with chants like, "We want freedom," "Down with the party," "Down with Xi Jinping," and "Give me liberty or give me death," which is massive, as anyone who is familiar with CCP and the functioning of the police will tell you that uttering a single word against the party results in severe punishments, not just for the individuals who fought back, but also for their family members and all the people who are associated with them. Despite knowing all of this, the number of protesters is growing, while lines of police stand and watch. China is hell-bent on censoring any news and videos of the protest, going as far as placing signal jammers on the streets to stop its citizens from sharing and updating about the ongoing protests. The official state media is falsifying and downplaying the severity of the protests, stating the COVID pandemic is still under control and minor protests are breaking out in the Foxconn factory regarding wage disputes. On Sunday, the People's Daily, CCP's main news agency, called for all the people to stick with Xi's policies, and the Chinese people are the least affected by the pandemic. Despite the efforts, CCP seems to have forgotten that the truth will always find a way to surface, and people have a breaking point. In this case, it was the fire that broke out in Xinjiang, killing 10 people, and the firefighters not being able to reach the building as the barricades that were put in place to ensure the success of the zero COVID policy. A lot of people were already frustrated as they were not able to access basic healthcare services, but this fire incident seemed to be the straw that broke the camel's back, as it seems to be the catalyst the already frustrated Chinese masses took to the streets. Protests and morning vigils took place on at least 3 university campuses, according to online videos verified by The Times. "Before, I felt I was a coward, but now at this moment I feel I can stand up," said a student from Xinjiang who was part of the protest at the campus of the Communications University of China in Nanjing, a province in eastern China. His comments were captured on a video of the demonstration. Smaller protests and vigils also broke out at Peking University, Tsinghua University, and Wuhan University of Technology. A protest also broke out in another city called Korla in the northern region of Xinjiang. The protesters finally started dispersing as more police officers showed up and started dragging people away. But even then, some stayed back and tried to protect the people who were being assaulted and arrested. Many protesters used their phones to record the collective mourning and protests, images that have spread despite severe censorship, emboldening others to speak out. Even though websites and apps like Weibo and WeChat eventually went dark, the damage has already been inflicted. Even now, people are finding ways to spread these images and videos. The biggest protest on Saturday appeared to be in Shanghai, where hundreds of people, mostly in their 20s, gathered at an intersection of Urumqi Road, named after the city in Xinjiang, to grieve the dead with candles and signs. Many there and elsewhere held sheets of blank white paper over their heads or faces in mournful defiance, white being the funeral color of China. "The demonstrations across the country have been the spark that lit a prairie fire," said James Yu, a resident of Shanghai, in an interview. He also used a Chinese phrase used to describe Mao Zedong's communist revolution. "I feel like everyone can make their voice loud and clear. It feels very powerful." Last month, Chairman Xi won a groundbreaking third term as the General Secretary, cementing his status as China's most powerful leader in decades. He also handpicked the national leadership lineup with loyalist officials, so he could control every aspect of the government and its functioning. But the night of public outrage signaled that the stringent lockdowns, which initially was celebrated as a success for China and her citizens, have become a liability. Although this can be heralded as a victory for the people and human rights in general, it's not all rainbows and sunshine, as it seems to have hurt shops, restaurants, and other small businesses, worsening the already slowing economy. This month, tens of thousands of factory workers, furious over bungled lockdowns and delays in payment and promised bonuses, clashed with riot police and tore down barricades and flipped police vans and buses. Although if we were to make an educated guess, the genesis of the protest is not the protest in the Foxconn factory, but a single man who seemed to have been forgotten by the masses and the mainstream media alike. This brave soul, known to us as the Bridge/Bannerman, who was wearing an orange work suit and a yellow hard hat, lit up a tire in the middle of a busy street and hung up a banner saying, "Go on strike at school and work. Remove the dictator and national traitor Xi Jinping. We want to eat. We want our freedom. We want to vote. In an instant, the man pulled off one of the most significant acts of disobedience under Xi Jinping's rule. This historic act tapped into a vein of discontent and ignited one of the most widespread social media storms. Although it was swiftly cracked down and censored, people were still able to share and spread the message by airdropping his message on workplaces and public transport, which was again censored by the CCP, who forced Apple to change how airdrop functions only within the borders of China. Even after the strict measures taken against people who revolt and extreme censorship by the CCP, the Chinese people have found their voices and have risen against the tyrannical government, which speaks volumes for the resilience and will of the Chinese people. Only time will tell how China, the Chinese people, and basic human rights and freedom fared in this war against the oppression of the CCP. In the meanwhile, we can like, share, and comment on the video, and remember what happens when basic rights and freedoms are taken away, and all that remains is tyranny and oppression.